Bali
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. So this is the second series we're doing. It's a brand new series starting today. We walked through the Krishna, pastimes of Krishna, where we looked at, the material creation, the spiritual manifestation, the time factor, relationship between Lord Vishnu and Brahma. So it kind of naturally led to this new series where we're looking to explore the avatars or different forms of God or different forms of Krishna. I think everybody's probably heard the term Avatar at some point. So, what we thought is dedicate this series to exploring those different forms of God. So as usual, we want to keep these sessions interactive. So if you have any questions, do feel free to either unmute yourself and ask the questions, or if you're feeling a bit camera shy, just pop them in the comment section and we'd be happy to answer any queries. So this is very much a very engaging session. So hope you'll all enjoy this class today. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Keshava Madhav Prabhu, who's going to take us through the session today.
Thank you, Dee. Could you shortly check for me on Facebook? I'm not sure whether the stream is on, because when I go on the Facebook, it shows just my profile. So, but actually, I thought I started it.
Let me double check. The spotlight's working. It's a little behind though.
But it's there. Okay, the stream is working. That's good. Okay, Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this new series, the Avatar series. I would like to go with you today through, let's say, some groundwork. Some of you might be very new to this, others might be quite familiar with it. Anyway, there's no harm, since our culture and tradition is that we repeatedly try to absorb and hear the transcendental topics that are given to us in the scriptures. Those of you who have been also part or have been participating in the Pastime of Creation series, you were made familiar with that Krishna has different types of forms, that they have particular names and categories. And again, today I want to cover that part for the beginning, to give a general understanding how Krishna is one and many at the same time. Srila Prabhupada, our founder, Acharya, the spiritual master of that movement, he named this society the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And Krishna, he particularly named the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's his translation, or let's call it also interpretation. Translation has to do with interpretation, from the word Bhagavan, because Krishna is addressed as Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since quite a long time, I always contemplate on that term, since it's an interesting term, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It means, or it indicates, there are several personalities, of which Krishna is the Supreme Personality. And Godhead, I don't know if this is this English, is it maybe a bit older English, but this is Srila Prabhupada how he used it. So that there are many personalities within the Godhead, and there is also a hierarchy of them. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Sri Krishna. We will hear today also one particular shloka or verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam that establishes this fact about Krishna. It's a very meaningful verse for all those who practice Krishna consciousness in this movement. We will cover this today. And speaking of the personalities of Godhead, I would like to enter right into the basic categories of forms. Just give me a second. I need to share the screen with you. So for some, this might be familiar. For others, this might be new. So we have here on top the Swayam Rupa. The Sanskrit term Rupa means form, and there are different categories of forms. Here you can see it's called the original form. This relates to Sri Krishna, the two-handed form of God with the flute playing Krishna, who is together with Srimati Radharani, his female consort or counterpart. And he is the original form, means there's no form above him he originated from, but he is the supreme form every other form originated from. So that's the meaning of Swayam Rupa, the supreme independent form which has no cause besides himself. He has all the possible qualities that God has. In the Nectar of Devotion, we heard that there are 64 qualities listed, of which the last 4 qualities are very unique just to Krishna. They're not prominent or present to at least that degree in other forms. That makes him superior. And he has also the capacity to multiply that form without that there is any loss or diminution in the expansions. We call it expansion. And there's the Swayam Prakash. These are forms of Krishna that are practically identical. It's kind of, he simply duplicates himself, so to speak. This is one of the great mystic opulences of God or Krishna. He can manifest as many forms and features as he likes, and there's no limit to it. And he does not get less. He's not reduced by expanding. So that's one of the great mysteries also of the Supreme Lord, his mystic opulence of being ever expanding. And the Swayam Prakash forms, they are residing, for example, in Dwaraka. This is one of the spiritual realms. Those of you who participated in the Pastime of Creation series, we discussed that there are different spheres in the spiritual sky. And according to the sphere and with its particular mood and pastimes, particular forms of Krishna reside there. And the Swayam Prakash is identical, as we said. And for example, in the pastime of Krishna marrying 16,108 princesses, this is becoming visible. Narada Muni, a great soul who is capable to travel all the spiritual realms and material realms, he once witnessed how Krishna has a palace, a very glorious, opulent palace for each queen. And he is present with each queen in one of the Swayam Prakash forms, means he expanded 16,107 times to associate with all those queens simultaneously, so that it's not that they had to wait for whatever it would take if he would just be one Krishna and had to attend to each single queen separately. No, they all had him and they all felt Krishna is with me. So there are the incidents where this feeling of the souls or the jiva is like this, that Krishna is with me. Krishna has the capacity to be present for each of the unlimited billions and trillions of souls without that anyone is short in association of Krishna or like lacks some. Like the gopis, the famous thing, Krishna is known for the rasa dance. And there, each of the gopis, the cowherd girls, they had the feeling Krishna dances with me. This is also because Krishna can practically be visible to each jiva or each other form without that the others notice that there are many Krishnas around. They all think this one Krishna is with me. So that's the original form, Swayam Rupa. And this form expands in also unlimited other forms, and these forms are particularly relevant for our series, the Avatar series. You see down there in the second category, it's called Tat Ekatma Rupa. These are the so-called partial expansions. Partial means that they are invested with a certain degree of spiritual potency or qualities that are residing in Krishna as well, but they're not equal to Krishna. They might simply slightly differ in physical features, for example. Technically, Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna, which is of white complexion, would be a Tathikatma Rupa because he slightly differs in appearance, but he practically has the same potency. It said he is Krishna just in white. And then there come other forms, like the Vishnu forms, which are four-armed. And from these Vishnu forms, so many avatars are coming. All the Dasha avatars practically are connected or included within the Vishnu Tatva or the Vishnu forms. With them we will particularly deal with in this series. You also see that there's next to it here is the Avesha Rupa that relates to Vishnu can empower individual souls with his Shakti, so they become capable of performing superhuman godlike deeds. We will hear about that also in due course. Narada Muni counts, for example, also as an Avesha avatar, Shakti Avesha avatar, a particularly empowered soul because he can spread the love of God all over the universe. That's one of these powerful opulences that no ordinary living entity is capable of. So in the Tathikatma Rupas, these partial forms, they have some other divisions. They might be not so relevant in a sense. We won't be too analytic, but just to mention them: Swamsha, personal expansions, and Vilas, a pastime expansion. Pastime is, again, a key word. Krishna enjoys himself by expanding in many forms. And this we're relating to all kinds of living entities according to their taste, according to their level of consciousness. So this is one of the wonderful teachings of the Brahma-mattva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, that Krishna is really relating to everyone, no matter in which body, no matter in which kind of species, no matter in what circumstances. Krishna always intends or makes efforts to relate to each and everyone and keep the connection, so to say. He is not forgetful of us, whereas we can be forgetful of him. So that would be one of the a bit an overview of the forms. And then we move on to the different categories of avatars. So we had the forms of Krishna as an overview, and then the categories, they are relevant for the coming sessions as well. I will shortly always, put this slide on the screen for memorizing it for those who want. Just that you see there are three different or main categories of avatars, and most of them belong to what is called Vishnu Tatva. Tatva we understand as the essential identity of someone or something. That means every form that belongs to Vishnu Tatva is, in a sense, identical with the Vishnu forms. Like the Dasha avatars, Dasha means 10. Avatar means someone who comes down from the higher sphere, someone who descends. I consciously will not use the word incarnation because incarnation means literally become flesh. And one of the very core teachings of our line is that Krishna never accepts a material body. We might use that word for convenience sake. It's common in language that incarnation is used, but actually technically correct is the term avatar, someone who descends and does not get covered by material energy. So this is true for all the Vishnu forms. We also see that Dasha avatars can also mean Jiva Tatva. Jiva means it's an individual soul like us. We heard about that in the Pastime of Creation series, the last session we particularly dedicated to the individual souls. And some of the Dasha avatars, the 10 regular incarnation avatars, they are jivas. Some of one or two we might shortly hear even today already. So then we have the bit more down there second, the Purusha avatars. They will come at the end again because we just covered the Pastime of Creation for 1 and 6 weeks, so we will keep that for the end. Guna avatars as well. all these forms are involved in the creation pastime when the material world is created. And there also we heard that, for example, Brahma could be also an individual soul. Then there's another category, the Yuga Avatars. And Yuga, for those who don't know, is an age. According to Vedic calculation, there are cycles, like a year has spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Then also the cosmic time clock, so to say, has different yugas, which is starting with Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, then comes Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, which can be compared to the seasons. Now we are in Kali Yuga, it's winter. It's not so comfortable as it could be like in spring. And for each age, Krishna is descending also in a form to particularly establish a way of spiritual life. We will hear about that later. We have the third category, Shakti Tatva. That means it's not Vishnu, it's not an individual soul, and this is, one can say, all the forms that emanate from Krishna's female energy, Srimati Radharani in origin, or Lakshmi Devi, which is in first expansion, and they are considered Shakti Tatva. Shakti means like power or energy. And for example, we have in Krishna's pastimes that Yashoda also has daughters. That would be Yoga Maya, means a form of the spiritual energy that manifests there. We will also hear, since we speak of Yuga avatars, that there's in this age that we live now, the Kali Yuga, the particular form of Krishna that is establishing the main process of spiritual life is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he is explained as being a combined form of Radha and Krishna together. And he comes in 5 features. There's this name Pancha Tattva for those who are familiar. It's Pancha means 5, Tattva means categories, and actually within him all the Tattvas are there. There's Krishna in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then there's the second part, Nityananda Prabhu, who is Vishnu Tattva. Then there's Advaita Acharya, which is representing Shiva Tattva. About Shiva, we also heard in the Pastime of Creation series a lot. He has his own Tattva or category. And then there is Gadarda Pandit, which is a manifestation of Srimati Radharani and is Shakti Tatva. And for the end, of course, also the individual soul is represented by Srivas Thakur. So these 5 constitute, for the present age, the Yuga avatars. Then we have one category down here is the Shakti Avesha avatars. We heard already, it's the empowered souls. There's some in the Dasha avatars and also others. In due course, we will hear more about them. And there's another category, Lila Avatar. Lila means simply pastime form, and there are many of them. So we will get to them also in time to some degree. Krishna has unlimited forms. Our Bhagavatam, or the scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, informs us about some of them, some of the most significant, some of maybe comparatively less significant forms, but they're all there. All right. Okay, then I go on further. Before we heard that there's one particular verse that is very relevant in regards to why do we worship Krishna and not Vishnu, for example, or another form. And the Srimad Bhagavatam establishes Ete Chamsha Kala Pumsha, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, Indrari Vyakulam Lokam, Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. There's a sequence of verses in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto, which concludes that all the forms mentioned before that verse are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but that Krishna is the origin of all of them, the original personality of Godhead. This verse is called the Paripasha Sutra. Many technical terms, but maybe we might keep this in mind. And it is said, this Paripasha Sutra is a verse that establishes how the whole book or the whole writing is to be understood. That truth or fact that is established in this particular verse or sutra, which is called the Paripasha Sutra, this is the guideline Means if in other verses it would appear that, for example, Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead or another form, it has to be seen in context to this verse. So and there's also the great acharyas. There's one, Jiva Goswami, he has written a whole treatise on it. It's called the Krishna Sandarbha, where he discusses this verse in at length. So just that you know, why do we worship Krishna, or in this movement, why is Krishna so central? It's because of that. So, all right. And he has always two main purposes, of which he informs us also when he comes with the different avatar forms. And we find this in the Bhagavad Gita in 4.7, very famous verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata apyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sarjami aham. So whenever and wherever there's a decline of religious practice and the predominant rise of irreligion, at that time Krishna descends in his original form. So he is interested in establishing what is called dharma, or the, how to say, valid processes of spiritual life, living in accordance with universal laws, with the will of the Lord, and so on. Because it's the nature of the material world that there is decline of everything. Everything is temporary. There's so many factors. So there's need to renew things from time to time. We also know that if you just look in our household and we see different machines and stuff we use, and at some point they need renewal or update because they're not anymore as functional as they're supposed to be. And similarly, it is with everything, even with religious principles. So this is one reason why Krishna over and over appears. And another is, quite the next verse is saying it, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samsthapanatharya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious, or it's also said pious means those who are devotees of the Lord, and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religions, I myself appear millennium after millennium. These purposes we will also address with each form that we hear about. For each avatar, we will look at who is, what is the demon that gets killed, how is the devotee pleased, so that we have this in mind to always reconnect to the reasons for appearance. And one of the great teachers in our line, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, explains that Paritranaya Sadhunam, this delivering of the pious or pleasing the pious, means, of course, that he protects them from demoniac influences and wants, but a more confidential reason is that he knows the truly God-conscious soul is always hankering to see the Lord. The true devotees, they are moved by strong feelings of separation. They don't like to be really without Krishna or in his form. They long to see him, to participate in his pastimes. And he says for that reason he comes and displays many wonderful forms, features, activities, so that the desire of the devotees is being fulfilled, and that they can experience transcendental happiness. So this is what Krishna intends. He wants to please the devotees, also annihilate the demons, and of course he wants to attract all those who are not yet attracted or who are forgetful of Krishna. That's why also this whole disciplic succession is so much making so much efforts to make Krishna known to everyone. All right. Maybe we can have up to that point. Are there any comments or questions?
I can't see any on Facebook, Prabhu, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, then we go further. So we have an overview here of the 10 Dash-avatars, the 10 regular avatars that or forms of Krishna that come regularly. That means this pastime or the pastimes of them, they repeatedly go on with each of the yuga cycles, and they have a certain chronology, or like how to say, order of appearance. We see here in the left upper corner, that's Matsia Avatar, the fish we will hear about today, and also Kurma-Dev. These two we will certainly cover. And then there comes Raha, the boar, then comes Narasingha, and so on and so on. Different forms. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of our great acharyas or teachers in this line, he makes an interesting statement about the chronology. He's explaining in his Krishna Samhita, in the 3rd chapter, he says that Krishna, which is the one in the center, is inconceivably powerful and merciful. He is ardently engaged in the welfare of all the living entities who have been conditioned by Maya, the illusory energy, due to misuse of their independence. When the conditioned souls receive various forms according to their nature, the Supreme Lord Krishna, by his inconceivable potency, agrees to accompany them by appearing or incarnating and enjoying pastimes with them. And now he explains, when the living entities accept the position of fish, the Lord accepts his fish incarnation, or the Matsia Avatar. Matsya is without danda. Unfortunately, I was not able to figure out what is the exact translation for that. So there's some feature, let's call it an evolutionary feature, not there, which makes it different from other forms. And he explains further, when the living entities gradually accept the position of Vajradanda, means a different kind of, development, then the Lord incarnates as Kurma, which is the tortoise. When Vajradanda gradually becomes Merudanda, the Lord incarnates as Varaha, the boar form. That's the 3rd one here. When the living entities accept the combined position of human and animal, there are many mythological figures like that, the Lord accepts his incarnation of Nrasingha. That means half man, half lion. When the living entities are short, he appears as Vamana. This one, though here he's rather big, but he appeared first as a dwarf Brahmana. And when the living entities are uncivilized, he comes as Parasharam. This is the next one here. And when they are civilized, he appears as Ramachandra. Next one. And when the living entities possess the wealth of practical knowledge, Lord Krishna himself appears. This is then here we see him with Balaram. And the living entities develop the tendency for argument, the Lord appears as Buddha. This is, for example, Shakti Avatar, a living entity, and Parasharam actually also. And then when they are atheistic, the Lord comes as Kalki at the end. These are well-known facts, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. In the course of gradual development of the living entities' hearts, the Lord incarnates in a form corresponding to the mood of the devotees. The source and activities of those forms are untouched by material contamination. So there's one important fact, that all these forms are not material. This is something we always get reminded on, that we understand them to be of a transcendental nature. So these forms are not conditioned by the material energy. They do not, or they can easily, they don't have to obey material laws at all. Means even by taking birth, they don't have to have semen and egg cell that has to combine and then ferment and produce an embryo. They are not dependent on matter. So they appear, and they make the appearance of that they take birth as maybe a regular living entity, but this is part of the pastime, so to speak. And then I would go to the first Dasha-avatar, and that's the Matsia Avatar. And we have here a verse of all in all 12 verses, I think. This is called Dash-avatar Stotram. This is a song that is composed by Jayadev Goswami, a great Vaishnava poet. And for each of the avatars, he composed a glorification, which always has the same, of course, the refrain. And for many of you, the Narasingha or form shloka is known, but the others maybe not so much. And I will always sing the shloka. Pralaya payodichale tritava asivida vihita vahitra charitra akeda keshavadrita mina sharira jaya jagadisha hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a fish, all glories to you. You easily acted as a boat in the form of a giant fish to give protection to the Vedas, which had sunk into the turbulent sea of devastation. So some of you might be still, in memory of the Matsia Avatar. We covered that in the middle, approximately, of our Pastime of Creation series. So he appears as the first. Shukadeva or March Parikshit or King Parikshit is inquiring how come that God accepts the abominable form of a fish, he says. It's out of different reasons considered abominable. And then this is explained what is his pastime. And we hear in the shloka that he acted as a boat in the form of a giant fish to give protection to the Vedas. And there's a turbulent sea of devastation. So he particularly appears when there is Brahma's night. We heard about that when Brahma has a day and night, which constitute each 1,000 yuga cycles. We've heard about the 4 yugas, 4,320,000 years is a full yuga cycle, and this times 1,000 consists of 1 day of Brahma, the creator God within the universe, and as long as his night. And he, at the end of his day, simply becomes tired and then goes to sleep. And what Vishnu is doing, the Vishnu who lays within each universe on the universal ocean, he makes he raises the sea level, and great storms are coming, and almost all the planetary systems are being destroyed except a few, the most on top. Also Brahma's, of course, is not destroyed. And so at that time, this form of Krishna appears, particular purpose. We see here he is a golden fish and he has a horn, and this horn is significant in his pastime. There are 2 mentioned also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One is where he killed the demon Hayagriva. Hayagriva means the one who has a horse head. Was a particular demon who, at the end of Brahma's day, when Brahma got tired, the Vedas, the sacred knowledge, slipped out of Brahma's mouth. And then the Hayagriva demon stole the Vedas, and Vishnu, being aware of that, he assumed the form of that fish, because it was already the waters of devastation were already manifesting, and he killed this demon Hayagriva, and this way rescued the Vedas. I didn't find too much detail on that. Also, we hear from some acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains what the different demons mean, but particularly in the Krishna Lila, when he's in Vrindavan, I didn't see yet what Hayagriva in particularly represents. Of course, one could make an assumption that since he steals the knowledge of the Vedas, it's about taking advantage of Vedic knowledge for selfish or materialistic purposes. There could be one demonic tendency that is here being destroyed by Krishna, but I'm not sure whether this is the authorized version. It is mentioned that this story is in a different place at a different time. It's called the Swayampuv Manvantara, and then there's the Chakshusha Manvantara. These are different days or like times in Lord Brahma's day in which this Matsia Avatar appeared differently for different purposes. In the Chakshusha Manvantara, the Lord assumed then as or it became this fish in order. Oh yeah, here we see the fight with the Hayagriva demon. It said ultimately actually Matsya killed him with his horn. And there up there we see still Brahma on his swan carrier. And then in this other age, then there's a king named Satyavrata. And this king lived on only water. He vowed some austerities. He was a very pious king in the Satya Yuga, the first age of the four. And one day it happened that in his meditation or like in his ritual practice, he was living he went to a river, and it's common practice to also offer water off the river back to the river. If you go to India, you see that in the Ganges or also in the Yamuna, this is being done, that the Yamuna is offered its own water, and it's of course not about the water, it's the act of devotion that you reciprocate with her. So what happened is King Satyavrata suddenly noticed that in his hand a small golden fish appeared with a horn. And his first response was to throw it back into the river and thought, oh, that's a mistake. So he did. And in the process of doing so, the fish started to speak to him. He appealed to the king. He was not just speaking like, oh, hello, how are you? He was appealing. He was really afraid. He said, please, king, don't throw me back into this river, because here I have many natural enemies. They might devour me. They might eat me. And the king was responding in a way that he said, of course, yeah, I'm a king. It is explained he wanted to please himself also in his nature as a king. Kings are called kshatriyas. Kshat means hurt, or being hurt, and triya means to protect from. A kshatriya is someone who protects others from hurt. So he wanted to, of course, please himself also by being a good kshatriya, and he gave shelter to the fish, and he put the fish into his water jug that he had. So he took him home in the evening, and overnight the fish grew suddenly too big for the jug and appealed to the king, please give me a more suitable space where I can live in. And the king threw him into a large well they had there. But also in a very short time, the fish again grew immensely and was way too large for the well. And again spoke to the king, please give me a bigger reservoir of water, I can't move in here. And the king took him to a lake quite big, and threw him in there. And also there, suddenly the fish again massively increased in size, and all the water disappeared. And he asked the king, please bring me somewhere where there's no possibility that water is reduced, whatever that means. So he brought him to the largest lake he could find. Same story happens. The fish is by now already enormous. And you might wonder, how did the king manage to move that fish? That remains a mystery. To me, somehow or other, he managed. And then there was the ocean left, the biggest reservoir of water possible. And he threw the fish in this ocean. And then again, the fish appealed to him saying, well, now we are back practically at the beginning. You again threw me somewhere. We have many large and natural enemies, sharks and so on. They may eat me. So please protect me. And at that point, King Satyavrata was very perplexed and wondering, what's going on here? Who is that? Who is that being? And it dawned to him that this is Vishnu. Vishnu coming to him and reciprocating with him. And then also Vishnu revealed himself to him as Matsia Avatar. He spoke to him, and then he instructed him. He told him, 7 days from now on, there will be a great flood. So the waters will be raised, and all the universe, all the planetary system will be destroyed. So at that time, I will send you a boat, and please gather all kinds of herbs, all kinds of plants, and so on, and each from all the animal species bring some couple, and so on. And there will be 7 rishis, or great sages. They will also be there. And since there will be no sunlight anymore, since the sun will also be dissipated, they will be the light. So these great rishis, they're very enlightened people. They would be the light on that boat. And he explained to him that he would then travel with the king through the waters of devastation. You know? And here we last time also discussed, here we have an interesting parallel, or like connection to what we hear in the Old Testament, the story of Noah. You know, Noah was in a very similar situation. He was chosen by God to remain while everyone else is being destroyed. It is explained in the Old Testament. Can you find the source? Quite at the beginning in Genesis, in the first book of Moses. God created, and he saw it was good, but then it was not as good as it looked like. He didn't anticipate that there's, apparently, according to the Bible, God did not anticipate that there's evil within the hearts of human beings, and he was very disturbed to see that his creation, particularly humans, they maintained so much evil, you know. And he also saw there were angel beings, or like gods, it is mentioned, and they mixed with the humans. So there were 2 species. Also in the Bible, we find that actually they're demigods, so to speak, and they mixed with the females of the human species. And I said from there the giants were manifested, and God was not very pleased about that. So, and of this reason, his frustration grew and grew, and he was so fed up, so to speak, so angry, that he decided, I will destroy all I created. And still, there was some desire in him to give it a second chance. He did not want it to destroy it completely, and he chose Noah and his wife to be to be the ones who will survive. Not just his wife, also his sons. They were the only ones considered fit to survive. And he instructed Noah to build the famous Ark of Noah, or Arche Noah. So here, in comparison, King Satyavata didn't have to build the boat. Matsia Avatar was sending it. Noah was building the boat. And then in time also he gathered all the seeds and plants and all the animal species, and they came onto the Ark of Noah. And then according to the Bible, then God also said, I will let it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And this way the flood will take away all life on earth, and then they would start new. So this is a process of creation we find also, of course, in the Vedic scriptures, that there's always great cataclysms, means catastrophes in terms of floods and so on, which mark the end of something old and provide the ground for something new. So that's how Krishna arranged this world. He always makes sure you don't get too comfortable here forever. He always puts an end to it, if you like it or not. So this is temporary. And he wants to remind us always, when he says also established Dharma, this is a temporary place, not your real home. Endeavor in this life to attain your eternal home in the spiritual sky. So everything else here will be just taken away. He says, I will become time, destroyer of the worlds. I take away everything. So that's what also Krishna declares, one of his teachings. So here King Satyavata was waiting for 7 days. And then also it happened as the Matsia Avatar was telling. The boat was coming, and King Satyavata gathered all all the living, the species, the herbs, the plant, and so on. And then you see on this picture, you see the snake. That's Vasuki. Vasuki is called the king of snakes. He has many hoods, and he also can produce fire from his mouth. And it said, Matsia said, yeah, I will connect the boat with my horn through Vasuki, the snake, and this way carry the boat through the oceans. And what happened also is he said, I will instruct King Satyarata in Vedic knowledge. So while they were traveling to the waters of devastation, the king was instructed by the Matsia Avatar on what is called Sankhya philosophy. That means an analytic study of the material world, the nature of the soul, the nature of the Supreme Lord. And ultimately, King Satyarata became completely enlightened about the nature of the Supreme Lord and also attained perfection. It said later on in another life, he became also one of the Manus. In each day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. The day is practically, segmented into 14 periods where different Manus. From there, actually, also mankind comes. The word Manu means like man. So humans come from Manu. So there, and he became one of them. Yes. So this is one of the how Paritranaya Sadhunam, how the Matsia Avatar wanted to please the king. There are different stories you also find where different devotees of the Lord have the desire to see the material energy or even the devastation. One is Marcante Rishi. He is to be found in the 12th canto to Srimad Bhagavatam. He had the experience of being inhaled by Vishnu. He entered the inner part of Vishnu through the nostril, being inhaled, and then he could witness. It was externally, it was still creation. Internally, he could then witness the devastation. You know how it works. So there's different desires. Also, Shiva once desired to see the destruction and so on. And it turned out that since such a night of Brahma is immensely long, if you take 4,320,000 times 4,320,000 years times 1,000, we end up with a very long period of time. And it turned out that actually Matsya arranged that that Brahma became sleepy, even though it was his daytime. He took a little nap. And what happens whenever Brahma is getting sleepy, automatically, so to say, the process of devastation is being triggered, it seems. As soon as Brahma is being sleepy, then the water level raises and so on. And as explained, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that at that time of the Chakshusha Manu, there was a curse. And the curse was that Agastya Muni, no, I forgot it. Okay, I didn't note it here, but there was a curse that Agastya Muni gave to one of the Manus, that during his time there will be a short devastation. So Krishna Vishnu used that curse to please his king, his devotee king Satyarata, and providing him with personal instructions. All right. Any more comments or questions on that? No? Okay, good. Then we continue with the next form, which is also dealing with water, but in a bit different way. Mm-hmm. No, I can't go. Sorry, give me a second. I have to check that. Okay, we have the Kurma-avatāra. And let's also again shortly chant the line that Jayadev Goswami composed. Kshitiri havipulatare tishtati tava prishte dharani dharana kina chakra garishte keshavadrita kurma sharira jaya jagadisha hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a tortoise, all glories to you. The great mountain, or the great Mount Mandara, rests upon your gigantic back, which acts as a pivot for churning the ocean of milk, and which has thus been marked with a large circular skull-like depression. In this way, your back has become most glorious. So I hope you can see this picture rather well. It's the only one I've found that really matches, and he gives so many details that are significant for the pastime. This pastime of Krishna, or this avatar, is to be found in the 8th canto, actually also like Matsia-avatāra comes at the very end of the 8th canto, and this is in the middle of the 8th canto. And this pastime actually connects several avatars of Krishna with one another, and has a whole history that makes sense to narrate the history, so that we get a sense of what is happening there and why. It, for example, also connects to the form of Mohini Murti, which is a most bewildering, enchanting female form of the Lord. It also relates to Vamana Dev on the long run, because many things that happen here also relate to personalities that are involved in the Vamana Dev Lila. Yes, so the churning of the milk ocean is a very fascinating pastime. For those who might not be familiar, the milk ocean is situated within the material world, but is a spiritual place. It is not visible to the material eyes, and is said it is the residence of Kshirodakasya Vishnu. This is one of the 3 guna the Purusha avatars, those who are performing the pastime of creation. And Shirapti, or it's also called Shiraptishai, and Shirapti means milk, and this is the ocean. That's the place of residence on which this form of Vishnu chooses to reside. And he lays there on Anantashesh. This is a snake bedstead, and it said this ocean of milk is the most sublime large ocean. And also on the beach, you don't have sand, rather you have all kinds of rubies and pearls and diamonds and all this. Everything is very sublime, and Krishna is laying, or Vishnu is laying there, residing within it, enjoying his pastime of yoga nidra, the transcendental slumber, and he's shining like the sun. And this is a place that is sought out always by the demigods when there's trouble in the universe. Particularly Lord Brahma is the one who is communicating with Vishnu, and it is said in this milk ocean, this is the entrance also. Through this form of Vishnu, all the different avatars, the Vishnu avatars, they enter through that sphere, or this part is kind of their door into the universe. And it happened, so this is something that happens in the universe generally. There are always 2 forces. There are the divine and there are the demonic forces. We see here also these 2 parties. In this incident, they somehow work together, but actually they all only had to work together because they worked against each other, and it didn't work out the way they expected. It is said always the demons also fight for sovereignty in the universe, and the demigods, of course, also want to maintain their rulership because they're the appointed servants of Vishnu. It said Vishnu installs all types of demigods for the purposes of managing the creation. They might be responsible for a planet, for an element, for populating the universe, and so on and so on. So, and one personality on the demon side is King Bali. King Bali will also be an important personality when we come to the Vamanadev avatar. King Bali also had a desire to rule the universe. As we see often in Srimad Bhagavatam, different great souls, or like souls with power, they aim for the biggest post you can have within this world, and this is kind of rule the universe, not rule the earth or rule the universe. And it's apparently possible. Also, another personality called Hiranyakashipu, this we will hear later in another pastime, also managed that. And so Bali was leading the demons into battle. He was their, how is it called? In chief, the general, or like the, he was their leader, military leader. And they were able to overpower the demigods because Indra got cursed. And it happened so that Indra is the king. He's the king of heaven. When you see pictures of him, I don't have one yet. You always see him on his, or mostly see him on this elephant. Airavata is a white elephant. All the demigods usually have their animal carriers. Brahma has a swan. Shiva has the white bull. Nandi, Indra is on this elephant. And over his body, he has eyes, many eyes where he can. It's also an interesting story how he actually got them, but it's maybe another story. And he is very proud. He tends to be influenced by lust and pride. And there was the great sage Parasharam, which we heard is also one of the Dash avatars. Yet these all mixed together in this pastime. Parasharam is considered a living entity, a jiva, which is particularly empowered by Vishnu, and this way becomes sometimes handled as a partial expansion of Vishnu or Shakti Avatar. That means more or less the same thing then. And he offered Indra a garland he was wearing before. It's common practice, for those who don't know, for the great exalted personalities like saints, as a sign of compassion and mercy, they hand some what is called prasadam to the other souls. It means it's considered what they used is being sanctified. And like, for example, when they eat from their plate, what is the remnants are supposed to be very potent. We hear about that in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Narada Muni eats also from the remnants from the great sages he serves, how he gets very much purified and enlightened simply by receiving this what is called prasadam. Prasadam means mercy. And also a garland is considered. You take prasadam, you get it, and you wear it. So that's the proper way of appreciating the mercy given by a sage. But Indra was too proud. He was not inclined to truly accept this garland as a prasadam in that sense, and he gave it to his elephant. And of course, the elephant, being a beast, what does it do with the garland? It just whirled it around, threw it in front of him, and stepped on it. So Parasharam is not a sage in a sense you might imagine a sage. Those of you who know the stories, they know what to what to think of that, because he's very grim. Also, very he represents also very let's say intense, violent feature of Vishnu. Parasharam, we will hear later, was slaying the whole race of kings for many times due to their misbehavior. So he got very upset. And he cursed Indra. He cursed him that he and the demigods, they will lose all their prowess. So with their capacity or ability to be powerful gone, they were of course vulnerable to the attack of the demons, and they were aware of that. Shukracharya is known as the head of the demons, so to speak, in terms of being the guru. each the demigods and demons, they have their gurus, and Shukracharya is the one who is guiding the demons. And of course, they were informed about that, and they attacked the heavenly planets, and they had, say, powerful snake weapons. And you must imagine that these creatures, they exist on a higher platform than we do. They have access to very different energies and elementary powers. They have fire weapons, water weapons, storm and thunder weapons, so many things that are quite devastating. And so they could apply them because that is mystic power. And so they managed to overpower the demigods, actually, and seize their kingdoms. So, of course, that makes the demigods very, how to say, being in a very bad position. And then at that time, usually they turn to Brahma, and he turns to Vishnu. So it is said then that they all together went to this milk ocean, which was first not visible to the demigods, even not to Lord Brahma, though he's a great devotee. So, but by proper prayers, Vishnu was pleased, and he revealed the whole milk ocean, the Shiraptishai ocean. And so all the demigods, they could see Vishnu residing there. And then Brahma offered prayers, and then they explained the situation. Of course, Vishnu knew, he knows everything that's going on in the universe. And then he advises the demigods, since they have now an inferior position, they should try to make a pact with the demons. And he advises them that they may apply the logic of the snake and the mouse. And that means the snake and the mouse are caught in one basket. They both have, of course, disadvantage. The snake could choose to eat the mouse and remain a bit longer, but still it will be imprisoned within the basket. But if it manages or kind of makes the mouse eat a hole into the basket, then the mouse can get out, the snake can get out, and then the snake can eat the mouse. So they were thinking, okay, let's make a deal with the demons. And it was about, Vishnu suggested, let's you churn the milk ocean, and in this way you will obtain the nectar of immortality. And instructed details that we'll hear. So and make a deal with the demons that they participate in that effort at the end, but still you will receive nectar. The demons will not. So that was the deal they made, and Vishnu instructed them, put all kinds of herbs and plants and stuff within the ocean, and then you should collect, or you should get Mandara Mountain. This is also in the verse here. It is mentioned, the great Mount Mandara rests upon your gigantic back. So this is explained in the Vedic cosmology. It's a huge mountain in the universe, and it's heavier than stone because it's made of pure gold. It has an unbelievable diameter and I don't know how many millions of miles and height and so on. So impossible almost to move, but they were supposed to get it there. And also the snake Vasuki, again, we heard before in the pastime, Vasuki was connecting the boat and the horn of Matsia-avatāra, so that he was used as a rope. So perhaps sometimes you might hear these pastimes and you feel a bit pity for this Vasuki. He's literally being used, we would say, in nowadays language. And he in this pastime, he struggles, he suffers quite a lot. He almost dies, actually. So he was being also presented with the effort, and he was promised some of the nectar, and he agreed to be the churning, that's a churning rod, and then he was supposed to be the rope that makes the mountain then rotate. So that was the idea. And first of all, of course, the Mandara Mountain had to be brought there. It's a different location within the universe where the mountain is and where the milk ocean is. And both demons and demigods, they went, and it was extremely exhausting for them to even lift that thing. I mean, it's like you can't even put a number to it, it's out of our understanding how heavy this mountain is. And they managed to uproot it, so to speak, or how to say with a mountain, uproot, but to take it. But then they got exhausted on the way and they had to put it down. But since the mountain was so heavy and it fell, and it crushed many demons, many demigods, and they were very, very disheartened. They were very down and felt, oh my God, now we crushed, and they lost so many on both sides, the demigods and the demons. And with their bones hurting or like their bodies aching, they were lamenting. And then Vishnu himself came on his bird carrier Garuda. Garuda is this immense bird, like golden bird, who, while when he swings with his wings, he vibrates the sacred sounds of the Rig Veda, if I correct, but some Vedic scriptures, he vibrates when he moves his wings. So it's a very divine bird, and he's carrying Vishnu. So Vishnu came, and simply by glancing over all the demigods and demons, he brought them back to life. It was one of his gracious moments. And then he also lifts with one hand the Mandara Mountain with one hand, and he puts it on the back of Garuda. How humiliating is that? You try to, with hundreds and thousands of powerful creatures, to lift the mountain, and then Vishnu comes and does it with one hand. So in this way, he always shows his superiority. He always shows he's the supreme person. He controls. For him, there's no impediment. There's no material law. For him, weight is very relative. He makes things heavy. By his law, things become heavy, matter becomes heavy or light. So he's the one who controls that. So he moves the Mandara Mountain to the Milk Ocean, and Garuda places the mountain first on the side. And then he's asked by Vishnu to leave. And there's also significance to it, why he's supposed to leave. Because Garuda is by nature a carnivorous bird. He's not a vegetarian. Sometimes it's a discussion for the Vaishnava. How come that one of Vishnu's servants is a meat eater? Aren't we all supposed to go vegetarian? And no, but Garuda eats snakes. And Vasuki was supposed to be summoned there, and he had to be the rope for churning the milk ocean. So Garuda had to leave. So in order not to be tempted to eat the snake, so then he did his part and left. So what then happened is that they picked up, like they arranged that the Vasuki snake was put around the Mandara Mountain, and first the demons had the tail and the demigods the heads. There were many heads, you see it on the picture. And the demons complained. They said, out of pride, we are very advanced people, we have Vedic knowledge, and we understand the tail, or like the tail of the snake is inauspicious, we want the head. And they remained silent. And Vishnu also silently agreed, and they switched sides. So the demigods went to the tail and the demons to the heads, which turned out at the end not to be such an intelligent decision for the demons. So and then the whole thing started. They tried to, churn, but then since the mountain had no basis, it just sunk into the ocean. Nothing worked. So again, very disheartened, very disappointed. They were standing there, and then Vishnu appeared and decided, okay, I will go down in this ocean. And then he manifested his form as Kurma-dev, this gigantic tortoise, and he lifted the mountain out of the milk ocean and made it possible that that has a foundation. So then the pastime actually could happen. And also Srila Prabhupada explains in the purports, here we can see, for Krishna can make things impossible and possible. It's always up to him. So one of the things we can learn from this pastime is also, whatever we endeavor, no matter how strong and powerful we are, it's always depending on the Supreme Lord. When he does not want that something happens, it will not happen. And if he wants that something happens, it will definitely happen, no matter how much we resist it. So here the demons and demigods, they always have this, I can do it, and they try to use Vishnu sometimes. They appeal to him or try to please him to serve their own interest, but actually Vishnu is the supreme director, and it all depends on him. He controls it. So then Kurma-dev is manifest, and it's also explained that he has a size of 800 millions, thousands of, just give me a second. Yeah, it was like 800 million 800 million miles in diameter. His how to say that, the oh my god, how you call this in English? From the tortoise, yeah, their back, their shell, exactly. Yeah, there are dimensions within the universe that, since the Mandara Mountain is already, it's a central thing within the universe. So of course, the form of Vishnu becomes immensely big. So then they churned, and first all, there are quite some living entities also in this ocean. First, the alligators, they got very agitated, and then, okay, they churned further, and it didn't work really. Nothing came out. So then, first, also again, there was a problem with the mountain, and Vishnu, he was him on top, and he said since the demons and demigods, they could not really control the mountain in terms of movement and to really churn it properly. And then even on top, he also supported the mountain from down and on top, so that it becomes possible that they churn. So all the efforts were only possible when Vishnu sanctioned the effort by actually allowing it, making it possible. With one hand, he held the Mandara Mountain, and then they churned. Still, there was no result, and they got very exhausted. Particularly the Snake Vasuki. We see here there was a fiery breath coming from the hoods of Vasuki and burned the demons, and also the demigods were affected. And Vasuki almost died actually in this effort. Just imagine, you would be that snake, you would be pulled around this mountain, and then some very powerful creatures squeeze you and pull you like this on a mountain. Wow, it's quite something. But then Vishnu entered each of them, the demigods in the mode of passion, in the mode of goodness, the demons in the mode of passion, and the Vasuki with Tamagun, and empowered them to continue. So they were actually very exhausted already. And here we can see there's a lot of struggle for the demons and for the demigods. There's a lot of struggle, a lot of exhaustion, a lot of pain. And then we can see from that also in our material efforts in daily life, more than sometimes it's really only the work that remains for us, not even the result. We just work hard. Srila Prabhupada mentions in so many places, there's so much effort for so little gain. And even on the process, we die for it. Work yourself to death for a little something. He mentions the donkey who works very hard for a little grass. He could even eat like this if he would be intelligent enough. But he thinks, if I work hard for it, then it's deserved. And so on. So here we see also so much effort. And they were all, of course, very much attracted to the idea of immortality, the nectar of immortality and power. So still didn't work. So then Vishnu himself came down and took over, and they were all very exhausted. And with his own two arms, he took Vasuki, and then he churned the milk ocean, and it got very intense. So actually, ultimately, Vishnu did the whole thing by himself. And they all were completely exhausted. And then the animals got also very agitated within the ocean. And while this happened, the powerful poison called Kalakuta manifested. So that was the first thing that came out of the milk ocean. And then everyone was, of course, very anxious about that. And then they turned to Lord Shiva for protection. And also Vishnu wanted to make Shiva glorious. And Shiva, of course, agreed to swallow the poison. He took it in his hands and swallowed it. And he has since then a blue throat. And a bit of drops went by, fell down. And as I said, these scorpions and snakes and poisonous plants, they took the opportunity, and from there they got their poisonous power, so to speak. That's also one detail we hear there. So Shiva drank it, and then there's so many creatures came out. Lakshmi Devi came out like a horse. There's so many stories. There's Dhanvantari, it's another avatar. That's an avatar of Krishna who is bringing the Ayurveda, the science of long living. So this form of Vishnu is also manifested in this pastime of churning the milk ocean. And so ultimately the nectar also was derived, and Kurma-dev in this way enjoyed his pastime. It is said he enjoyed that the rotation of the mountain gave him, or like how to say, helped him to get relief from a transcendental itching sensation. Apparently the turtle had like under the shell some itching sensation through the intense rubbing of the Mandara Mountain. Also this could itch or like scratch the itch. And so in this way, Kurma-dev enjoyed being scratched on the back by Mandara Mountain. So this is one wonderful example how Krishna enjoys his pastimes. And this happens regularly, this pastime. Then often we find that there's a bit change in detail. Krishna is not stereotype. He does not do exactly the same thing all the time. He always adds some fresh details, some little bit of change. So in this way, he reciprocates with the demigods and also with the demons accordingly. And when the nectar was churned, actually another pastime started. We will not get into this now, since also the time is short. Then also the form of Mohini Murti is being manifested. That's the next part of this pastime. So, but Kurma-dev, this is his pastime. All right. Are there, from your side, any comments or questions?
We just had one request from Jen, who's joining us on Facebook. She's asked whether we can have the PowerPoint slides circulated. Maybe post them on Facebook, or you can send them to me and I can send them to her.
Yeah, probably like this.
I'd find it quite useful as well, particularly, I was frantically scribbling down notes, but I think it'll be good to have them actually.
Okay. Yeah, certainly.
There weren't any other comments or questions.
All right. Yes. Anyway, our intention was to narrate and to get into the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. Yes, essentially the idea is to understand Krishna also in his playful nature and how he simply is showing us so many of his opulences, and that we can get attracted. The details, of course, also of Krishna are being mentioned in Bhagavatam. Their descriptions, how his physical appearance is, how Vishnu is said to have a sky blue complexion, whereas Krishna has like dark blue. So, but it's always very shiny and it's very attractive to look at. All right. And he has this most sublime jewelry. He has usually this golden yellow dhoti he's wearing, and so on. So yeah, this is something we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures. And the idea is to engage our mind by continuously contemplating on the different pastimes the Lord displays. Sure. Yeah.
Shraddha, you're on mute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for the very interesting class. So one question I had was right at the beginning, you were mentioning like the different, forms of Krishna, and it was explained how, when the people are short, then he comes as Vamanadev, and then he is short, and when the people are argumentative, he comes as Buddha. So it really seemed that Krishna, reciprocates with the people's like level of consciousness and then manifests, accordingly. So could you elaborate on how that, aspect of Krishna or that characteristic of Krishna manifests in our personal lives, like how we experience and see Krishna according to our consciousness?
Yes, certainly we can see that, for example, our needs in our life influence how we look at God or what aspects of God we consider. Srila Prabhupada, for example, also explains, it's in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he mentions a few obstacles on the path of spiritual life. And one of them is like to have fear of a personal spiritual identity. And for example, if someone is like that, Krishna also reciprocates by encouraging the sense of oneness, or being rather impersonal, abstract about God, because this relates to the need, or like say the psychological need of that soul at that moment. And we have that also in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains that he even encourages those who worship demigods, though it is not very intelligent, because they are driven by the need for opulence or enjoyment. And in this way, he encourages a mode of worship, or provides opportunities. Maybe you meet different people, or you particularly feel attracted to a certain type of ritual or process. That might be, for example, some might like, because today is also Ekadashi, where we fast, and some might find have a need for purification or wish for better standard of living, and they perform that activity in that mode or in this mood in order to attract these aspects. And then if we have that particular need or mentality, we always tend to particularly acknowledge those aspects of Krishna or God that are corresponding to our needs. For example, for me, it's also something over the years, I figured that for me, it's easier, or it suits more my inner image of God to relate to Krishna in his forms of Vishnu or Lakshmi Narayan, since this creator aspect and also the powerful aspect and this majestic aspect more resonates with my sense of what is God. Whereas with Krishna and his playful pastimes, it never felt such a resonance so far. I could appreciate, particularly I liked when he kills demons. Interestingly, it said actually then Mahavishnu acts within him. This is kind of his Vishnu feature that likes to fight. So, and therefore I tend also, of course, to be attracted more to that part, and then also get accordingly my inspirations or realizations, and also my way of how I, for example, approach prayer and mantra singing is more than based on how I look at Krishna in his aspect of the supreme Lord and controller and full of mystic opulence and so on. And so I think then everyone finds particular aspects of Krishna particularly appealing. And one Shastric evidence is also given when Krishna and Balaram, when they enter the arena in where's Kamsa living in it's on my tongue. Mathura, exactly. So then it's just explained how so many different people look at the same Krishna but see a different thing. So the wrestlers, they saw actually death personified. The women of Mathura, they saw that the supreme Cupid, or the most beautiful person. From the dynasty, the Vrishni dynasty, they saw his part of. He's one of us, so they said they saw their kinsman, so to speak, and so on. Different or the great sages, the yogis, they saw the Paramatma, and according to yeah, that we also in our daily lives, we look at Krishna and we particularly notice different things in Krishna, or feel attracted to particular aspects of Krishna based on the needs also we cultivate.
Prabhu, we had another question from Sharma. So she says, could you please explain the Trivanyam, where the nectar of immortality dropped, and the celebration every 12 years, which is considered the biggest gathering on the planet?
Okay, this detail, I must say, I don't know much about it. I'm sure since when I was in South India, for many of these details of the incidents, they are being celebrated, but I'm not familiar with the details. The only thing that I'm familiar, or like that is on my mind, is that the drops, for those who don't know, when a nectar of immortality was being distributed, the demons were being cheated. Mohini Murti, the most beautiful, enchanting female form of Krishna, managed to take the nectar away from demons, give it to the demigods. But one demon managed to sneak into the group of demigods and also receive a bit of nectar. But Vishnu was quick to respond to it, and with his Sudarshan chakra, his disc, he cut off the head of the demon, but he was still drinking. And so a few drops went through his head and fell on Earth, or like on the planets. His head is supposed to be now, it's the Rahu planet, a subtle planet who is, according to Vedic astrology, responsible for the sun, eclipse. It's called the eclipse when the sun disappears, isn't it? And the drops, it said they fell down, and then garlic and onion developed from that. The Vaishnavas don't eat garlic and don't eat onion, perhaps for medical purpose. I must say, when I'm in winter and here, I like to use sometimes garlic because it has medical features, and that's the thing why it is said because it was the nectar of immortality. The garlic and onion also have quite health benefits. These are herbs or plants, they undoubtedly have that, because in many, also here, if you see some people, they use garlic for so many medical purposes, and it works. At the same time, though, because it was touched by the demon, it also increases demonic tendencies, it is said, or like also the lust in the body and so on. Therefore, Vaishnavas don't eat it. So certainly I assume there's some place, but I don't know about the details, how this is celebrated and what is being done. Just as with the drops, this is what I know about it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, the festival she was referring to is Kumbh Mela.
Oh, so this is the Kumbh Mela. All right.
Yes, it's the Kumbh Mela. So it is considered the largest religious gathering.
But yeah, I was not aware that it's connected to the to this incident that the drops fell there. Okay.
Can I ask another question in relation to my previous question? So my question is, we can't say exactly no, but in relation to Lord Chaitanya, what would then be, like, with what consciousness in the humans did he reciprocate, to take that form of Gauranga?
I mean, it's explained, since we are very fallen and very bewildered, he doesn't even show as God. It's also explained that Krishna is Tri-yuga, that he actually officially appears in Satya Treta Dwapara Yuga, and in Kali Yuga is rather hidden. There are different statements about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being the hidden avatar or form of God for this age, who establishes the Yuga Dharma. And he is rather driven by extreme compassion. He actually reciprocates with our incapacity for spiritual practice. He's much more showing mercy to us, since we are actually for so many things not at all fit. so many austerities or things we can't do properly, or simply by our living circumstances, lifespan, and global conditions, and so on. So many things are not even possible if you go strictly Vedic. So in my understanding, this is also how Rupa Goswami is glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Maha Vadanyaya Krishna Premadaite Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namna Gauri Jise Namaha. That Mahaprabhu did something no other form before him did. He just, without discrimination apparently, or like simply like this, he gave out love of God to everyone, even those who are not at all fit to be on this highest platform of transcendental realization. So my understanding is he is being full of compassion and reciprocates with the inability of us to truly perform spiritual life by making it very easy, by practically gifting it to us already, and that we make something with the gift. We don't have to deserve the gift. We try to make use of the gift. That would be my comment to that.
Then last question. So could you say that, being attracted to a certain form of, one of Krishna's main avatars, say for instance, we get some devotees are just very attracted to, Lord Ram, although they know, like, theoretically, like, Krishna is the supreme, they just resonate more with Lord Ram. And I think given Lord Ram's character, there might be some good reason for that. Is that also indicative of a certain, like, mood that they have? Because, like, so for instance, other devotees are just kind of obsessed with Lord Nrsingadev. They're just like relish is because there's more pastimes of Lord Nrsingadev where he's like, ripping demons apart, and some people just love that.
Mm-hmm. And are you asking whether this is already an indication for their spiritual nature, or like their constitutional position, or?
Maybe that could be an additional question. I was just thinking, is that kind of indicative? Like, for instance, it was said that when the people have good conduct and character, then Lord Ram comes. So I was thinking, is that kind of more just indicative of, like, that individual's consciousness, and maybe also then their spiritual form?
Well, maybe I can just shortly, in response to that, share from myself. I also particularly have an attraction for Lord Narasimhadev. It was always like something very strong. We have here in Germany also in the Simhachalam farm, we have this wonderful Prahlad Narasimha Murti. And he marked, so to speak, also the beginning of my spiritual life. And what I see is the lion, or Nrsimhadev, is of course a powerful, also male figure in that sense. And he's giving protection to Prahlad. And also for me, I guess for many come to Krishna consciousness, there is 4 reasons in the Bhagavata where we say the distressed, those who seek for wealth, or those who are curious or inquisitive. And many of us have distresses, and the material world is full of dangers. And I see, for example, for me, this idea of being protected, or this having this strength, this like protective form, male form, was something very important. Whereas maybe others, if they grow up in a very protected environment with a father figure, they might maybe relate to Lord Narasimhadev differently. I think it's also our biography that leads us to have what I mentioned before, certain needs, and there's certainly a projection of that to God. So whatever need we have, we project on God and see how this can need be fulfilled with God. And perhaps in our original spiritual life, there would be nothing at all with Narasimhadev, for example, or like with Ram. Certainly, over time, I think the more you get familiar with Krishna consciousness and practice, it's also mentioned in Nectar of Devotion. The sadhaka or practitioner is even instructed that at some point, after having undergone general training and practices and so on, that he should develop a particular taste, serve a particular deity, a particular form, and this way deepen his connection to Krishna. And this certainly, I think, is a matter of how developed is our spiritual consciousness, how, so to speak, how free do we become of passion and ignorance. And I think then we have more of a natural sense to relate to a particular aspect of Krishna out of, kind of more or less of a spontaneous sense of connection or belonging. Yeah, but in many ways, if you speak of state of consciousness, I think it's a lot about the needs we have and how we feel a certain aspect of God or Krishna relates to the needs we feel.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'll just make one last comment, and I think that the fact that Krishna manifests all these different forms, according to our individual and collective consciousness, really does highlight his intense compassion that he has, for all the fallen souls. Like for one person, he exhibits like Nrsingadev as a protector. And for someone else, he exhibits Lord Ram as like the ideal example. And I think that is just really, it really shows the heart that he has, for all the souls, and the desire he has to somehow inspire them to, return to him.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Then we are already over time. Then thank you all for your participation. I plan to continue next week Sunday at the same time, same link, same place. Continue with the next Dash Avatars. See how far we get. And wishing you a nice Sunday and Hare Krishna. See you all.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Haribo.
Haribo.